afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining for today's meetings. This first meeting is a meeting of the Governance Committee of the UofL Board of Trustees and Research Foundation. I will now call the roll. Bonita Black, here. Scott Brinkman.
Here.
Mary Nixon.
Here.
Jim Rogers.
Here.
Krista Wallace-Boas.
Here.
Thank you. Having determined a quorum present, I would like to call this meeting of the Governance, Trusteeship, and Nominating Committee to order. One reminder before we jump into the business of today's meeting. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the October 24th, 2019 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? The motion carries, and the minutes stand approved. Our next action item is the election of the University of Louisville Research Foundation officers for the 2020-2021 year. After consultation with board members, the committee proposes the following slate. Chair, Jim Rogers. Vice Chair, Sandra Frazier. Treasurer, Diane Medley. Secretary, John Chilton. And Assistant Secretary, Jake Beamer. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the slate as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? Thank you. The motion carries. I next have an informational item for you. Our next item of business is to update you on the annual evaluations of the board and the president. Trustees were sent in February an invitation to participate in a survey to evaluate our board. We will use these results to inform us on how to be better fiduciaries of the university. Does anyone have any comments on the evaluation, the survey, or its process, or any questions? Next, I'll talk to you about what's coming up with regard to the presidential evaluation. I want to share with the trustees that we have developed a survey to evaluate performance in 2019-2020 fiscal year. The survey will be sent to the trustees following today's meeting. And I want to ask each of you to complete that survey as quickly as you can. The survey results will be shared with the Executive and Compensation Committee. Then the process is at the June committee meetings, the president will preview her 2020-2021 goals, and then at the July annual board meeting, all trustees will evaluate the president in open session, and Neely will present her proposed 2020-2021 goals to the full board for approval. Are there any questions or comments on that process? Having no other business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Governance Committee and the University of Louisville Research Foundation?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.
We can move to the committee. Diane, whenever you-
Okay, Jay, do we need to wait till 105 or it's 106? Okay.
Right.
Are we ready to get started then on Finance Committee?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I will now call the roll of the Finance Committee. Diane Medley here. Scott Brinkman.
Here.
Raymond Hurst.
Diane? Diane? Would you ask everybody
Yes.
to mute themselves?
Okay. Okay. Okay, Raymond Burrs,
Here.
Jasper Noble. Yes.
I'm here.
Jasper- And Krista Wallace Boaz.
Here.
Okay. Having determined a quorum present, I would like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee of the University of Louisville Board of Trustees to order. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes from the December 12, 2019 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any abstention? The motion carries and the minutes stand approved. Okay, our next items of business are related to 3 quasi-endowments, which Brad Schaefer will brief us on. Brad, would you begin?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Brad, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Great. If I start to get some feedback, I may shut off my camera. I've learned I have better persistence through that. So thank you, everyone, for taking up each of these items. What I have to present are 3 recommendations for your approval as requested by various colleges. Each of these has to do with changing the disposition of a quasi-endowment. Some aspects for each of these are donor-based and some are foundation policy-based. So I know Keith Sherman is on the call and will be able to assist relative to any of the foundation policy pieces. So the first one, and you should be able to click on your on the link there on your agenda if you have not to see each of these. But the first one is a request from the law school. It has to do with the Plunkett endowment. There is a long and winding history with this, but this is one we found that it's a number of these that we're cleaning up. I'm certainly happy to share more details, but the start of this was that we received proceeds from a life insurance gift with back in 2015 with no direction. And so it was held to put into a fund. The daughter of the deceased donor became involved happily, and we're actually having an estate gift conversation with her for a fairly significant amount. But some other additional donors gave to this fund over time in addition to the donor I just mentioned, and then they decided they wanted to create their own endowment, so they have pulled their initial small gift back from that. And so what the law school is left with is about just right around $5,000, just under that. And they really, again, are basically back to having no guidance for it. So at request of Dean Colin Crawford, and you should be able to see the paperwork there, he has requested that we liquidate this quasi-endowment so then he can spend that money, again, it's just over $4,700 within the next semester for student scholarships. Happy to answer any questions on the Plunkett endowment. Okay, hearing none. Sure.
Do we need to vote on each one individually? I believe we do.
It's
Yeah.
you all of it.
Jake,
I
you're
know that-
cutting out.
Hey, Jake, everybody, if you would mute yourself, both the audio and video when you're not speaking, that might work better.
Okay, Jake, could you repeat what you were saying?
Should allow Brad to finish, and then we'll.
Vote on each one? We can't hear you, Jake.
All right. I said we should go ahead and allow Brad to brief us on all 3, and then when he's finished, we can then vote individually on each one.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And you're much clearer there recently, Jake. So whatever you did worked. The second item is from a request from the College of Business and their Board of Advisors. They have a fund that heretofore it has $125,000 in it. Heretofore has been used as a student loan fund, and in keeping with the definition of that word, it is a system that has to be paid back if students request money from that system. At the request of the dean and the Board of Advisors, they would like to change this fund to a quasi-endowment, transfer that internal money and make it a quasi-endowment so that it can be a student grant fund. That not only could students continue to apply for that, and they'll continue to use the systems within the school to determine who is eligible and all of the standard processes. But the impetus behind this request is that the students would now receive a grant with no payback necessary as opposed to a loan. Any questions about the request from the College of Business? Hearing none, I will move forward to the third item. Third item is request is from the Dean of the School of Public Health and Information Sciences. This has an interesting history as well. The fund balance is $19,287. The driver for this request is that fund is made up of multiple gifts from multiple people over multiple years, and again with basically no direction for its use. And so the dean has requested that they turn that fund, that $19,000 into a quasi-endowment, and the donors have been asking, some of the donors who have contributed to that fund over the years have been asking if we can use it, and this is his best recommendation for that. And again, this one would be to provide scholarships to students within the School of Public Health. Any questions?
Yeah, this is John Chilton. Could you explain the difference between an endowment and a quasi-endowment?
Sure. And Keith, are you on?
I am, Brad.
Okay, I'm happy to do that, and then Keith can cover anything from their side. An endowment is forever permanent, and a quasi-endowment allows, for various reasons, allows for the fund to be spent down. It allows for greater flexibility, and on the foundation side, I believe it still has the same parameters relative to investments. But anything you would add to that, Keith, relative to a distinction?
Yes. So, John, just to clarify, when a donor designates a gift to be an endowment, it is typically a permanent endowment. We're required to maintain the corpus in perpetuity and to provide a spending allocation each year comprised of a portion of its earnings. If a donor does not, he or she himself request that those funds be endowed, the board can decide to endow those funds, but it must be quasi-endowed, meaning the corpus can be spent down to zero. Until such time as that corpus is liquidated, the fund is treated like a permanent endowment. It is issued a standard spending policy allocation each year, and then the unit reserves the right to go to the Finance Committee and request that some of the corpus be spent down as well.
Other questions regarding, in general, or regarding any of the specific requests? Thank you, Keith.
Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a vote for each of these individually, because that's the way Jake has the script outlined. So could I have a motion to approve the liquidation of the Lauren Plunkett quasi-endowment as listed?
So moved. Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? Okay, any opposition or abstention? Okay, that motion carries. Now I would like to seek a motion to approve the creation of the quasi-endowment in the College of Business, known as the College of Business Emergency Grant Fund. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstention? That motion carries. And then lastly, could I get a motion to approve and a second to approve the creation of the quasi-endowment in the School of Public Health and Information Sciences?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstention or opposition? That motion carries. All right, moving on. We've got another section of our agenda dealing with some capital improvements. We're going to start with renovations at the Ville Grill with Dan and Mark. Could you give us the explanation of this, please?
Certainly could. This is Dan. I'd like to introduce Mark Watkins to the committee. Mark is our Chief Operating Officer, and one of the areas that he oversees is facilities. And I thought it would be a good opportunity for Mark to share these three projects with you, so you can gain a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. Mark, would you like to explain it to the committee?
That'd be great. So thanks everyone for allowing me to hop on this call. So there's three items that we want to review today. There's the renovations for the Ville Grill. There is the RRC, which is the Research Resource Center, and JP Speed School basement HVAC systems. So I'll start with the renovations of the Ville Grill, which is the university's only traditional resident dining facility. This facility was built in 2008, and there's been no renovations done to it since it was built. We've entered into a new partnership with Aramark in 2016, and part of their arrangement was that they were going to renovate the existing facility and then add additional seating to this building in this fiscal year. So the renovations will be updating the interior and building about 200 seats on top of the building structure. The estimated renovations is about $1.9 million, and it will be funded by our business partner and not the university. The $1.9 million will be spread over the remaining years of our agreement with them. Any questions about the renovations for the Ville Grill? Okay. I'm going to move on to the second project, which is the Research Resource Center, which is the RRC. This is requesting the approval to replace the ventilation system, which is the HVAC system for this building. The RRC is one of our major research facilities out on the health sciences campus, and we're in need of upgrading the existing HVAC system due to the fact that it is 7 years past its useful life. We've been experiencing some pretty bad issues with being able to maintain that system. Being 7 years past its useful life, there is no replacement parts for it. We predict that this system can fail within a week, within a month, within 6 months, but it's going to fail eventually. And we rather be proactive because it takes about 5 months to upgrade the system. If the system went down, we would compromise the existing research that's in that facility, and it would cost us a lot more if we didn't do something now. So that renovation alone is about $1.5 million, and that's really it on that one. Any questions about the RRC? Okay. I'll move on to the third one, which is the JP Speed School basement. That facility has a HVAC issue as well, which is the air handling unit, and that facility is not adequate to handle the demand for that building. The basement of the Speed School gets up to about 92 to 95 degrees. which causes a safety issue for our students and administration that has offices down in that space and students that have classes in that space. That building was built in 1942, and there's been no major renovations done to that facility. It's in need of some tender loving care, and the first thing we need to do is upgrade that HVAC system. And if we can get the approval to move forward on that one, it allows us an opportunity to fix a known safety issue and improve the environment for our faculty and staff. So both of those, the RRC and the basement HVAC systems, will be funded through a finance arrangement that we have with our banking partner, PNC. We've worked with them to outline a 10-year loan on the asset, and the estimated payments are about $280,000 a year, and that will be the debt will be funded or will be paid for through operational savings and vacancies that we have within that unit. Are there any questions?
This is Raymond Burse. As it relates to the speed school and the RRC, the source of funding being vacant position and annual appropriations, I guess in looking at these in the past, this is the first time I've seen the source of funds described that way. Are we doing something different now?
Well, I can tell you what we're basically doing is, as we set the budget up, one thing that we're trying to do is get back to some sort of a capital renewal pool, and we're trying to pull money away from, for example, vacant lines, salaries. We won't fill positions, and we'll convert those dollars to something that's a little more something that's a little more stable to support deferred maintenance. It's kind of an internal budget reallocation. We're pulling away from certain line items and pulling it more into deferred maintenance.
So is this permanent or temporary?
It's permanent for the next 10 years.
So they
probably
lose those positions. So they will lose those positions.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, that area reports to Mark, so it's his job to manage that workforce and make sure he has enough people to do the job, and we're confident that he's in that position.
But isn't the vacant positions coming out of the speed school itself?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. They're coming out of the facilities area. Not the speed school, the facilities area. Both of those.
Okay, it's not clear in the write-up.
Oh, okay. But yes, just to be clear, the funding source are vacant positions and operational savings dollars in the university's facilities management area.
All right, are there any other questions before I call for a vote? Okay, according to Jake here, we have two different motions and resolutions to approve. So the first one is on the renovations at the Ville Grill. Could I have a motion to approve those renovations?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Okay, hearing none, the motion carries. The next resolution has to do with the financing of the two projects, and there is information in your materials that deal with the financing through PNC. Could I have a motion to approve the resolution to finance both the speed school and RRC projects?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Or is there any
Aye.
discussion? Okay. Any opposition or abstention? All right, that motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to the renewal of the line of credit with Dan Durbin.
Thank you. This is the annual renewal for our line of credit with PNC Bank. I believe this is the third, next year will be the third year. that we've had that line of credit in place just for, in case of emergencies and unforeseen situations. It's a $50 million line of credit. The interest rate is basically LIBOR plus 0.5%. And again, it's in place for 1 year. It has to be settled on June 30th of every year. And it's a risk mitigation strategy from, in my opinion, and necessary, again, just to make sure that we have adequate cash available in case something happens.
Are there any questions for Dan on this line of credit renewal?
This is John Chilton. How much have we used the line in the past?
We've never used it.
Okay. Any other questions or follow-up? All right, could I get a motion to approve the line of credit renewal?
So moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify aye.
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 Any opposition or abstention? Okay, that motion carries. All right, continuing on here, we now have the approval of an amendment to the 403B retirement plan with Dan and Mary Elizabeth Miles. Sorry about that.
Sorry. I'll go ahead and lead off, and Mary Elizabeth and I think Tom Hoy can jump in if need be. But as part of our mitigation strategy to help curb the potential $39 million worth of risk we have from COVID-19, one of the strategies is to basically stop making the employer portion of the retirement plans, the 403B plans that we have. We have a base plan of about 7.5% that the university contributes a salary with an optional 2.5%. If the employer, it matches the employer for 2.5%. The amendment is designed and written to stop those contributions for a period of 90 days, looking to save about $9 million, again, to help curb some of the COVID-19 risk that we have. We also have a provision incorporated into the amendment that if everything would clear and things go back to normal and we're able to restore the funding that we've lost, the risk that we've lost, we can restore the individual accounts back to kind of their original position or return the dollars that we've stopped contributing for that 90 days. Any questions or?
Okay. Hearing none on that, could I have a motion to approve the amendment as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. And what about all right, any discussion? If not, all in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? That motion carries. Okay, our last agenda item is a financial update from the CFO. But I've asked Dan to postpone this and present it to the full board at our regular meeting later today. Is there anything you want to say at this time, Dan?
No,
Stay tuned. Okay.
Yes, everything can wait.
Okay. All right. Having no other business, well, let me ask, is there any other matters to come before this group? All right, and having no other business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned.
Everybody, this is Neely, and Jake tells me our next committee meeting, we cannot start till 1:35, so we can have a 3-minute break if people want. And Jake, is that right? We have 4 minutes to begin?
That is correct. I have the video pulled up from athletics if we'd like to show that just in the interim.
We could, but the one thing is I'm wondering, for better quality of transmission, do you think you could encourage people who dialed into this to actually try the live stream instead. It's the same thing, but that way obviously we want everybody to stay on who's either a member of the board or they're presenting today. But we encourage lots of people to follow this. Do you think we could ask them to hang up here and go to the live stream link?
Sure. So if you're not presenting, or if you are not here to answer questions for any of our upcoming recommendations, including our new programs in the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, or if you're not here to assist with our presenters in the Research Foundation meeting later, or the board meeting, if you could hop off and join our YouTube live stream, and that website is listed on the Board of Trustees website. If you just go to louisville.edu.
Can you put it on the chat by any chance? We have a minute, that way they know where it is.
Sure, I think someone can pop that in for you.
I just stuck it in there, so it's there now.
Outstanding job, Kevin Gardner. Thank you. And Vince, that's exactly what I was thinking. Because if we can get anybody, again, we want everybody to be participating. There's a way that you can jump off of this and go to the live stream. Okay, now I think you should play the video, Jake. Again, everybody, we want you to participate, but if you can jump off of this, maybe it'll improve the call quality.
I've received a number of encouraging texts, emails, and phone calls. In one text from my college baseball coach, Keith Madison, that struck me at this time as a quote from Admiral William Frederick Halsey Jr. There are no great people in this world, only great challenges, which ordinary people rise to meet. And as we think about our campaign of We Rise as One, meaning the Card Nation, I think about his word rise. It's a fear of failure that prevents us from rising. But we do not rise to meet a challenge alone. We do it together.
Okay, we still have 1 minute more, so everybody just sit tight.
All right, we are now at 1:35. Raymond, if you'd like to begin the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, you can.
Okay, thank you. It is time to begin the Academic and Student Affairs Committee meeting. I'll now call the roll of the committee. Raymond Burse here, Benita Black.
Here.
Sandra Frazier.
Here.
Jasper Noble.
Here.
Crystal Wallace Boaz.
Here.
Ron Wright.
Right here.
Having determined a quorum present, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee of the Board of Trustees. Our first item of business is approval of minutes of the December 12th, 2019 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second that the minutes be approved. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Abstentions? The motion carries. Our next item of business are regarding two new academic programs, and I would ask Provost Vane, will she brief the committee on those?
Sure, thank you. So we have two programs. One is a Bachelor of Business Administration. It is a generalist degree, more introducing students to a variety of areas of business without the specialization of one. I have Kristen Lucas and Richard Germain here who can talk about this program in more detail. But essentially, it's trying to introduce students who have an interest in a business degree, but perhaps don't want to specialize in accounting or finance specifically, to get the general ideas of all those areas, and that also then gives them an opportunity to have a minor in another area, not even necessarily in the College of Business. So they could take a minor in a different area, maybe in business, but they could do an English minor if they wanted to. So it's a more flexible degree and geared towards students that they don't already serve. If there are any questions about the program, I know Richard's online. Is Kristen also online?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So they are here to answer questions.
Are there any questions from any of the board members?
So hearing none, I'll go to the second degree.
Well, the way we got it set up, we're going to take them one at a time. So, okay. May I have a motion to approve the creation of a Bachelor in Business Administration as described?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
It's been moved and second that the degree be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstention? Motion carries. Now you can go to the next one.
Okay. So the next one is a Master of Science in Materials and Energy Science and Engineering. This is a new program for us. I think it's the only one of its kind in the state of Kentucky and the region. Dr. Mahendra Sunkara, who is also the director of the Kahn Center for Renewable Energy Research, is the proponent of this master's degree, and I believe he's online too, can answer questions. This is a pretty exciting program. Students will get their master's and be able to go into semiconductor electronics materials, catalysts, and energy. And we also think that many of them will go on to pursue a PhD. So we hope that it will be a feeder for some of our doctoral programs in engineering. So if there are any questions, Sunkara, I'm sorry, Dr. Sunkara, are you here, Mahendra?
Yes.
Okay, so Mahendra is here to answer any questions that you might have about the program.
Any questions from any of the board members? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the creation of a Master of Science in Materials and Science and Engineering?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It has been moved and second that the program be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition?
Okay.
Abstention? The motion carries. Okay, thank you for that. Our next item is the approval of the creation of the Louisville Automation and Robotics Research Institute. Provost Payne.
Yes, we are excited to have Dan Papa here, who is really a shaker and mover in this area, and he has started this institute called Larry. We want to make it a provost approved and board of trustees approved institute. And we believe that there are a lot of opportunities for the region and the state by having this institute, and that we will attract new researchers and graduate students to this. He has also already gotten some grants that are important and impressive. And if you have questions for this creation of this institute and center, he's here to answer them, I think. Are you here, Dan?
Yes, I'm here.
There he is.
Okay, are there any questions? Any of the members of the Board of Trustees? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the creation of the Louisville Automation and Robotics Research Institute?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second that the Research Institute be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you for that. Our next item is the approval of a revised personnel policy and procedures document for the Speed School of Engineering. A summary of the revisions has been provided to you in advance, and the revised document has been approved by the Speed School faculty the Faculty Senate, Provost Office, and General Counsel. Dr. Boehm, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just say that that the Speed School of Engineering personnel policies have been in need of some revision for some time, and that they took this job very seriously and made changes that I think make it a much stronger document, including thinking about how they treat their term faculty. They're calling them research track and teaching track faculty, who will now be reviewed on a regular basis, just like regular faculty. And so I think it's a strong document.
Anyone have any questions regarding this document?
Randy Bufford here. If I could ask one question, please.
Go ahead.
When I read through the attached materials, the one point that I didn't know, and it may be in all the other schools, me being new to the process, is why we would need two different codes of conduct if the university already has one. Do we possibly send confusion by having one embedded in this one that is slightly different and does also, by the way, reference the UofL code of conduct? And is that something we should think about having standardized? And with that, I'll wait for the answer.
So we do have a university-wide code of conduct. It's not specific just to faculty. It applies to all employees of the institution. The Speed School of Engineering Code of Conduct here applies to faculty in Speed School, and it expects that there are some professional differences between faculty across the institution. Arts and Sciences, for instance, has its own code of conduct for faculty as well. And I think that the School of Medicine, as a professional school, adheres to certain professional codes of conduct there. So I think that probably we should think about the code of conduct that the university has as a minimum, a baseline. This is where we all move, and that then units can demand a higher level of responsibility and conduct from its own faculty. So I think it's sort of like the Red Book. It sets the minimum standards, and then faculty in units can demand more of themselves than the minimum. So
thank you very much.
Sure. Dr. Burst, we can't hear you.
Okay, I muted myself while Randy was talking. Are there any other questions from anyone? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the revised personnel policy and procedures document as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the revised personnel policy and procedures document for the Speed School. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you for that. Our next item is the approval of a revised bylaws for the School of Medicine. A summary of the revision has been provided to you in advance, and the revised document has been approved by the School of Medicine faculty, the Faculty Senate, Provost Office, and General Counsel. Dr. Boehm, do you have anything additional to add?
This is a smaller set of revisions, I think, but they are still necessary kind of cleanup items, so that, for instance, we no longer have an EVPHA, and so the dean in the old documents was reporting to the EVPHA and now reports to the provost. And we also have some franchise questions being answered here. So emeritus faculty, for instance, are no longer occupying spots on executive faculty unless they have been elected by their departments as a regular member. So it changes just some of the voting things. I think it's really more of a cleanup to bring practice, the practices into the document, rather than having a document where our practices are not the same. So it's really just a cleanup.
Are there any questions for Dr. Boehm? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the revised School of Medicine bylaws as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the revised bylaws be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you for that. Our next item is the approval of an exception to our pass-fail policy as required by SACS. Dr. Boehm, can you explain this recommendation?
Sure. So when we met last time to brief you on what we were doing with in response to the COVID-19 crisis or pandemic, we talked about the change to a pass-fail policy for this semester only. At that time, SACS had said it was fine that we could, we checked before we created the policy, obviously, and they said it was fine. Many institutions were going to a pass-fail policy. And then after our meeting, they sent a letter saying, to all institutions, saying that we probably should get our boards to approve it. So we have already briefed you on this policy, but now we are seeking your official approval of it. And I apologize for that, but it was really a delayed SACS requirement that brings it to you at this time. So if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the pass-fail recommendation, policy recommendation? Okay. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the exception to the pass-fail policies as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we approve the exception to the pass-fail policy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61.8101F?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We're now in executive session. I ask only the trustees, president, provost, legal counsel, and assistant secretary to remain. For those of you dropping off the call, we will alert you to when we have concluded the closed session, but you should also monitor the live streams for an indication of when we resume the open session. So Jake, I'm depending on you to tell us when we can do it. I guess we need to do the notification to the public and the media to have them rejoin us, and then we'll start back in 5 minutes.
That is correct. So the live stream is on a 20-second delay, so they're actually 20 seconds behind anyway. But Ryan will go ahead and resume the live stream, and then we will, they'll see that, and we'll get them back into this meeting.
Just let me know when we're ready, okay, Jay?
Yes, sir. We'll get them back into this meeting.
Yeah.
See that, and we'll get them back into this meeting. So I just heard my own voice, which means that the live stream, I believe, would probably be back up. Ryan, can you confirm that? And then we'll just give it a few more minutes to get everyone back in the room. So the live stream is back up, but we will wait just a few more moments to make sure that those folks who have left have an opportunity to rejoin this meeting. Which means that the live stream, I believe, should probably be back up. Ryan, can you confirm that? And then we'll just give it a few more minutes to get everyone back in the room. So for those of you who are watching via live stream, we are back in open session. We're just waiting a couple minutes until we have folks rejoin the meeting, but then we will resume shortly. Thank you.
Jake, there's a chat message that the live stream is up.
I see that. Thank you. There's just a 20-second delay, so just giving them just that amount of time to get back in. All right, Dr. Burst, you can resume.
Okay, during the executive session, personnel matters were discussed. We shall now take the following action. May I have a motion to approve the president's recommendation regarding personnel matters as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? The motion carries. Before we adjourn, I want to announce that due to the COVID-19 crisis, the 2020 Trustees Award will be postponed to December 2020. The deadline for nomination and submission is extended to Friday, November the 20th, 2020. Please visit the Board of Trustees website for more information. Having no other business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Excellent timing. We just have less than a minute before we can start the Research Foundation board meeting. And Chair Rogers, you'll be on deck as soon as we hit 2 o'clock. All right, it is 2 o'clock. Jim Rogers, are you ready to start the Research Foundation board meeting?
I am.
All right,
Thank
you may
you.
begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining this virtual meeting of the Research Foundation Board of Directors. I will now call the roll. Jim Rogers, here. Neely Bendapudi,
Here.
Benita Black,
Here.
Beth Bain. Beth
Sorry,
Bain.
here. Here.
That's okay. Scott Brinkman,
Here.
Randy Bufford,
Here.
Raymond Burse,
Here.
John Chilton,
Here.
Dan Durbin,
Here.
Sandra Frazier,
Here.
Kevin Gardner,
Here.
Diane Medley,
Here.
Aaron Nixon,
Here.
Jasper Noble,
Here.
John Smith,
Here.
Krista Wasquez,
Here.
Ron Wright.
Right here.
Thank you. Having determined a quorum is present, I would like to call to this meeting of the UofL Research Foundation Board of Directors to order. As chair, it is my responsibility to remind all members of the board of their responsibility to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest. Each member has received the agenda and related information for this Board of Directors meeting. If any board member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before the Board of Directors at this meeting, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict at this time. Hearing none, the first item of business is the approval of minutes from the October 24th, 2019 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? The motion carries and the minutes stand approved. Our next item of business today is the election of officers for 2020 2021 is listed in the slate approved by the Governance Committee earlier today. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the slate of officers as listed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? The motion carries. Our next item of business today is an update from the Executive Vice President for Research and Innovation, Dr. Kevin Gardner. This is his first update to the board. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I know that time is short, and so I am going to take us on a whirlwind tour of the research lifecycle and some of the metrics that we track. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some highlights that are particularly relevant at this juncture in time related to COVID-19. Jake, can you move to the next slide?
And also, Jake, can you put it in slide mode?
Yes, give me 1 second. It seems we're having a little technical difficulty. Our first, I will say, so just 1 moment.
Don't worry, while you take your time, when you pull that up, I just want the board to know how Kevin Gardner has been extraordinary. Just jumped in, and a few weeks after he came here, a couple of weeks, all of this started, and he has been a terrific leader to us. So gives me a chance to say that and acknowledge his contributions.
Well, thank you, Neely. It was not how I intended to begin this job, but it's been great to work with this team and to see the response from the whole team. And I think the people's colors shine through when they're face this type of adversity, and it's been a fantastic team to join. So whirlwind tour. So research begins with proposals being submitted. We track those kind of early indicators of proposals, awards that come in the door, the dollar value of those awards in clinical trials, how much we spend in research, and close out those awards. So these are all really important metrics. Up until the end of March, all our metrics looked fantastic for the year. So our research progress was really strong. Our expenditures were very good. So we had really good metrics and indicators through the end of March. Next slide, please. There's a lot of COVID-related activity going on, and I'm going to be talking about some of this. We just in the last few weeks submitted around 12 COVID-19 related proposals totaling over $23 million. We've got awards in the door. We've got research support agreements. So these are research, for example, with companies and so forth, non-disclosure agreements, agreements to use data and so forth that gets managed by this office. And we're doing other types of activities like managing a N95 mask decontamination program that you may have heard about, and I'll be talking about some other COVID-specific research activities that are going on now. So next slide, please. This is the next step. When after research comes in the door, we always think about the research dollars, but really, what does that research enable? And it's the things that when people make discoveries and they think those discoveries have some value in the marketplace or can do some good for society, they file a disclosure. And disclosure is the upstream, the big end of the funnel for ideas that end up out in the marketplace as new companies or licenses or new technology or new products. Next slide. After disclosures, we file patent applications and we await for those patents to be awarded. We track all these things on a regular basis. Next. And then the other types of metrics associated with this are royalties or license income that come in the door, associated income, which could be research agreements and things like that are based on that intellectual property and so forth, and patent activity, and then patent reimbursed income. So when a patent gets completed and a company buys it or uses it or has a license agreement with it, usually we try to get those patent costs paid back by that licensee. So these are some of the activities that bring research into the marketplace and into the world. We have a lot of different types of activities around innovation and entrepreneurship where we really try to foster those activities. We have 3 entrepreneurs in residence right now. Alice Shade was our most recent one. These are successful entrepreneurs who can help our faculty be entrepreneurial and who in the past have taken university technology out and started businesses around that technology. The other great idea, this was pre-me, this was back in November 2019, was Founder Hunt that was held at the Churchill Downs, and this was a really successful event that brought potential CEOs, potential technology adopters together with people pitching their technology. So this is a picture of an inventor and someone from our commercialization center pitching technology to potential investors and potential future CEOs of those companies. So now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and just talk about some of the ways that the research capacity we have was pivoted rapidly to address the COVID-19 pandemic. We had testing up in the very early parts of March for COVID-19 testing, and we've tested thousands of results for 15 major area hospitals, as well as drive-up test sites, as well as long-term care facilities. So these are our infectious disease experts led by Julio Ramirez and Ruth Carrico, and then our virologists led by Kenneth Palmer and Dong-Hoon Chung, who they were responding to this back when nobody else knew there was a pandemic coming. Our experts knew that it was on the way. Next slide. One of the biggest impediments to testing is actually taking samples from people. And so this is the biggest thing that you hear about in the state of Kentucky and around the country. And we have a group of people from the School of Dentistry, School of Medicine, from our Advanced Additive Manufacturing Institute, from engineering, advanced manufacturing, all came together to produce these 3D printed swabs. They're in a clinical trial as we speak with our hospital and our medical school. Next, please. If you've turned the news on at all in the last 24 hours, you've probably seen Paula Bates on the news. She has a drug that was originally developed for cancer, for fighting cancer, that has shown effectiveness for COVID-19. There's tremendous interest in this. I asked in the story that has gone viral. I probably shouldn't say that, but this story has really been picked up in the news around the country. She's done 12 interviews in the last 24 hours. I asked how many people have looked at it and what the measures are for the success of this story by Bailey Pulliam, who wrote this story for us. And she said it crashed the internet, or she said it broke the internet. 113,000 page views since yesterday. And I think the website got crashed, went down or something like that because of that. So we do have a commercial partner, and we are trying to fast track a clinical trial. Next, please. John Trent has, for years, you may have heard about this data seam project where computers in schools around Kentucky are harnessed when they're not being used by students for their computing power to search for drugs for cancer. When COVID-19 appeared, John Trent quickly pivoted his cancer-seeking activities to COVID-19 fighting activities. He's identified a dozen or so potential therapies for COVID-19. The next step of those is that they get tested in the lab at our Center for Predictive Medicine, our regional biocontainment lab, for their effectiveness against the coronavirus. Next slide, please. We have another therapeutic agent called Q-Grifostin that's was developed for HIV that has also shown great promise. We have a commercial partner. We have a number of commercial partners interested in growing the Q-Grifostin enough to produce clinical trials. So we are moving as fast as we can to produce a clinical trial. The fact that this can be grown in plants like tobacco means it can be rapidly scaled up and deployed. Again, this is not a vaccine, but it's a therapeutic agent that's shown really great effectiveness. And finally, there's a project that you may have heard about recently called the Co-Immunity Project. This is led by Aruni Bhatnagar. It's currently funded with some philanthropic dollars, and it's currently in its first phase of testing healthcare workers for the virus, but also for the immunity to the virus through the antibodies that may be in their blood, and working together with the Red Cross, identifying potential donors for convalescent serum that is thought to be an effective treatment for people in the sickest of patients with COVID-19. And after the current focus on healthcare workers, we're looking to expand this study to broad randomized community testing to really understand the community prevalence of COVID-19 and the community immunity associated with that. So that's a whirlwind tour of how we take research from proposal idea to really societal impact, which is really what research is all about.
Jim, may I?
I'm unmuting. Any questions?
No. If there are no questions, I'd like to add a couple of comments to this.
Please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the impact that the research enterprise has had at the University of Louisville is a story that we need to share more broadly. Again, as I said, Kevin actually, I asked him to be in charge of this, and he's done it for us in terms of testing. We've had, and we'll mention it a little more, but the Center for Infectious Diseases, that's the group that has the Pfizer North American Center for Excellence for Infectious Diseases. That group working with our engineering, dentistry, and medicine to create the swabs, what we've done for testing, and then these different modes and modalities in which we're trying to COVID-19. I'm very proud of all the people involved. And the community co-immunity project is something that I know you'll be hearing a lot about. Many places that are trying to get healthcare providers tested. But what is unique about us is because your UofL research is working with the Louisville Healthcare CEO Council, we actually will be testing healthcare providers, not just in our own hospitals, but for Baptist and Norton as well. And I think that's a terrific opportunity for a city to say, and when I say healthcare providers, it's not just the doctors and nurses, it's the whole range of people that might be exposed in a hospital setting. So that is pretty distinctive. This was announced by the governor in one of his press conferences, and I just wanted to draw attention to that. I am also happy to tell you all that I was asked to be on a panel to talk about how universities are responding to COVID-19. And this was the president of Yale, the president of Howard University, the chancellor of the SUNY system, and me on behalf of UofL. And I have to say, I felt really proud of sharing the many research contributions that our people are making. So I just wanted you all to know that. So if there are any other questions, Kevin is happy to answer, or I'll be happy to answer, but just something for UofL to be very, very proud about.
Yeah, it's really the reason why. I mean, we have this incredible capacity and are in a great place to contribute to the social response, the whole society's response. When we think about reopening the economy and things like that, our researchers can really help out the city of Louisville and the state of Kentucky in that regard.
Kevin, that was a very quick but impressive presentation. And we look forward to hearing more from you as we continue the university's trajectory as a premier metropolitan research university. So thank you so much.
Jim. I only had 5 minutes, so I tried to make it quick.
Yeah, I've got more than 5 minutes worth of work.
Actually, Kevin, you have more than 5 minutes. You're new here, so we have to tell you that we cannot start a meeting before the time that's posted. We can always start after. So we just said 5 minutes in case we needed to catch up, but This is a very important piece, so I didn't want to cut you off.
Understood. Thank you.
Having no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor, please signify aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned.
Madam Chair Nixon, you can start whenever you're ready.
All right, and I think since we have already determined a quorum present, I would like to call this meeting of the University of Louisville Board of Trustees to order. As chair, it is my responsibility to remind all members of the board of their responsibility to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest. Each member has received the agenda and related information for this Board of Trustees meeting. If any board member knows of any conflict or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before the Board of Trustees at this meeting, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict at this time. Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. The first item of business is the approval of the consent agenda as listed. Please let us know if there is any item you would like to discuss individually. Hearing no objections, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? That was interesting.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstention? Motion carries. Our next item of business on the agenda is the report of the president. Neely, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And like the teacher that I am, I'd like to remind everybody that if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. That's what creates the echo. So if you would be on mute, it'll help us all. I'd like to set the stage for my presentation today, Mary, by talking about, in a very difficult time, how we have made our decisions. We have relied on our cardinal principles. We think that's the best way to come back to our values. So what we have done is say, what is it we say we stand for, and how do we live those values every single day? And one of the things that I will tell you is that what sets us apart as a university is how broad the participation has been in all of our decisions. When I talk to my counterparts, whether at the ACC or within the Commonwealth, one of the things that I'm always proud to talk about is how we've had so many people say, we're ready to help, call on me, what can we do? In all of the decision making, we've had over 50 leaders from across the university who've been participating regularly. And people are usually very impressed and surprised by that, because most places, as you know, decision making is a much smaller cadre of people. The second item that I'm equally proud of is among these 50, we've truly tried to have shared governance. And so we've had faculty, staff, and student senators, Senate chairs actually participate in all of these meetings. And I'm very, very grateful to all of them. Along the way, all of us have discussed and said what we want to be is the community of care. That's what we've started with. That's what's most important to us. And I have to say that we truly have lived up to that. At every stage, we're trying to look out for the faculty, the staff, the students, and I'd like to pay special tribute. We'll do this again to all of the people on our clinical side, UofL Health, and our researchers who are on the front lines every day trying to help us with a crisis that none of us expected. I'd also like to take a moment to really thank this board. As you know, we have our student emergency fund, a staff emergency fund, because we know times are tough. But I really want to acknowledge Randy Bufford for his leadership gift, and for all of the board. I believe we have near 100% giving, and I'm very, very grateful. Madam Chair, I believe we have over 315,000 that was contributed. So we are, on behalf of all of us, thank you. This is going to our students and to our staff, and very, very grateful to every member of this board. Thank you. And Brandy, a special thank you to you. As far as our agenda today goes, I wanted you to hear from the people who are doing all of the work. So let me just set up the agenda and then we'll turn it over. For me, every day, I try to think of the different units that are moving parts really and try to see how we are doing. One big part of our mission is the instruction. And as Chief Academic Officer, Beth Bain and the whole team, every one of the deans have done an amazing job of bringing us online. Last time we told you how we moved online, how many courses, what's happening. But today you'll have an opportunity to hear from a departmental perspective, a faculty member perspective, and a student perspective. And I'll ask Beth to introduce them to you in a minute. But we thought you would appreciate hearing from people who are on the front line about how this move to online learning has been. And the second area, of course, is research. And all of you were in there when you had a pretty robust discussion of the research enterprise at the university. So that's a second area you'll hear about. You'll also hear about athletics and how we are coping with the challenges that COVID-19 poses, especially for athletics. And finally, you'll hear from Tom Miller about our health enterprise. I know it looks like I skipped two people. I'll come back to that. So these are the four areas that really make up the university in terms of broad structures. We wanted you to hear about that. One thing that's very clear to me now is just as we talk about student success, we talk about now, next, and beyond. That's kind of how I tend to view a situation, no matter what it is, good or bad. What's happening now, what comes next, what's beyond. So we have not forgotten that while we are coping with this, it's really important to really make sure that we are poised for success beyond this. So our strategic planning was well underway, and Gail Dupuy, who's done an amazing job, will give you a very quick update on how we've had to be nimble. One of our cardinal core principles, our values, is agility. So we've had to be agile, and she'll give you an update on that. One other item is you'll hear about grand challenges. We told you we'd bring this to you in a board meeting. We'd like to tell you the process we went through and where we are, because as a university, I'm hoping you will be happy to see the core themes that have emerged that will tie the entire university together, no matter what discipline, to say, these are the problems that we want to address for the future. You'll also, of course, have a financial update in terms of the tremendous challenges we're facing now and our risk mitigation strategies. I have told you before, on all of these, we've tended to be in the forefront, and that's because of an incredible team. I really want to say I could not have asked for a better team. Beth Bain, Kevin Gardner, Gail Dupuy, Dan Durbin, Vince Tyre, and Tom Miller. These have been exceptional individuals, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of them. So without any further ado, I'd like us to quickly move into our presentations on the online learning experiences. Beth, do you want to introduce Candy or Candy?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Candy. Candy's online, right? Candy?
Hi, I'm here. Yes.
Okay. So I have, Neely said she wanted to do something with online learning for the board report this time. And I asked Candy, who stepped in to be the acting chair while her chair was on sabbatical. Who knew what you'd have to face this semester as an acting chair, Candy? But I asked her if she would talk about her faculty's experience in shifting to online. I'm also really interested in her presentation because she's going to talk a little bit about a particular social media blitz that they are doing on wearing masks on campus. And then Jasper agreed to represent not only his own experiences, but some of those that he's received from students who have reported to him about their experience shifting to online. And then finally, I asked Krista, because Krista's experience is unique. Teaching music online is something that probably she never expected that she would do. And so I thought we would talk about what that's been like for the School of Music to shift to an online format. So Candy, with no further ado, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Sure. Thanks for having me today. From the Department of Communication perspective, I'm going to talk about 3 different areas that the department really covered this COVID situation. The first is how our department shifted to instruction, to online instruction. I'm going to talk about our health campaign that we've done, and then a quick senior message. Across all 3 of these areas, one thing that you will notice, as Neely pointed out, is the theme of a community of care. We really took the theme of community and care and tried to see how we could put that into different aspects of our department. I want to say from a department level, we moved 126 sections from face-to-face to online when we were asked. That joined our 41 sections that we already had online. The Department of Communication is in a unique position because we've been teaching online. Our BA and our BS degrees and our minors can all be achieved online. So many of our instructors have taught online. So I feel like repeating some other words of Neely is that we were on the forefront. We were ready in many ways to face this challenge. We were ready to say, okay, let's get the rest of our faculty on board to teach. To do that, we had our faculty in Delphi Center. We had them in group meetings. We had faculty team meetings that were just devoted to online learning. We also set up some faculty one-on-one mentoring. So we had faculty who had taught online, and we helped mentor those that had not, that were new to online learning. I will say that the online classes that we did teach is not a true online experience, but it was a hybrid of what can we do in this moment to make sure our students feel connected and they feel like that their community of communication cared about them. So we did all we could to make sure our faculty and staff were prepared for our students. So when students came with questions, we could answer them or find out the answers to their questions pretty rapidly. So I would say that moving from face-to-face to online instruction went very effectively for our department. Give big kudos out to our chair, Dr. Futrell, who had the vision to get us set up for online learning many years ago. Along those lines, we had one class in particular that I want to point out, and that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. It's this cards covered challenge. If online, if you've looked at any of our social media pages or any of the Department of Communication website, you will see this hashtag cards covered. What this class did in particular, Dr. Lindsay Della and Karen Freeberg, with their graduate students, they figured out we need to get people wearing masks. And what a clever way to say we are a community of care, not only in our department, but our larger community as well. So on the left side of your screen, you will see the infographic that they created that explains exactly what people should do. Grab a mask, create a mask, and you will see the picture on the right. This was some of the snapshots that the University of Louisville found online of people wearing their masks, and you see a lot of UofL masks. We have, you take a selfie, you post it with the hashtag cards covered. Hopefully they also tag the Department of Communication, and you challenge other people, take a picture of yourself with your mask. This is to help our community limit the spread of the virus, and the Department of Communication trying to do their part in what we can do. So this social media campaign was a success. Within about 72 hours, we had over 200,000 impressions. We had 83,000 people reached, and those were numbers right when it first came out. So over time, we're seeing more and more people participate in Cards Covered. To date, we have staff, coaches, UofL coaches, instructors, students, athletes, and administrators all participating in Cards Covered. So that was another way our department shifted from this online learning, and also showing that how can we take our material that we're going to do in class and make it fit a broader issue. The third part that I'm going to talk about today is our senior message. Our faculty have no cameras with them. All of our film equipment is still in the department. All of our equipment is either in the either in the department or in the hands of students right now. So our faculty still wanted to say something to the seniors. We usually do a convocation to say, hey, we really like you. We're going to give some awards out to our seniors. This is our special way of meeting parents as they come in. But we weren't able to have our convocation, so our faculty decided to all make a short message to the students, and this was the end product. Let me say, this was without budget and without equipment. Otherwise, it would look very different, but I still think it turned out pretty well. So Jake, are you going to hit it? Okay, thanks.
Hello, graduating communication students. Because of the circumstances, we can't be at a formal graduation and tell you in person just how proud we are of all you've accomplished. So what we've done instead is we've created a message just for you.
Throughout all the challenges this semester, you have been resilient.
As we moved to online classes,
You've proved you're flexible.
as you adapted to this crisis, you showed that you were capable. You're a smart college student, so of course you're creative.
Like all great students, you're inquisitive.
As you navigated through all of your classes,
You showed us you are a critical thinker.
For your education and life, you have passion.
You are an integral part of the Department of Communication community.
You are influential.
You are a problem solver.
You are an effective communicator.
You are more than your degree.
as you continue your education.
You kept an open mind.
Going forward, as you adapt to life after college,
You will be resilient.
You're graduating amid a pandemic, which tells us
You are and you will be capable.
In your career life, you will be creative.
As you
Give and get respect.
You will build healthy relationships.
Just as you did as a student.
You will work hard.
To figure out our world, you will ask important questions.
You will take the lessons learned in class and seek solutions to hard questions.
With the knowledge you've gained at UofL,
you will make the world a better place.
You will continue to learn far beyond campus in our classrooms.
You will impress and inspire us.
But most importantly, it has been our great privilege to teach you. We wish you the very best. Congratulations, seniors. So I'll just wrap up by saying this semester created some challenges for our department and for our students. But in all, I think that our department came together and showed that we're a community of care. We had 3,000 students in our classes that shifted or were in online classes this semester. We had nearly 50 faculty that taught online for us, and we've reached out to our seniors and our broader community. So that's what the Department of Communication did, and we hope that we continue the cycle of caring. Thanks.
Thank you, Candy. That was really good. Jasper, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Just a few points that I've witnessed from the hundreds of students that have reached out to us at SGA that have contacted me personally. I think the most important thing to take away is how much people value in-person learning. The number one comment that we've gotten is that, you know, I wish I could go back to class. I wish that we were here learning in person. So if there's a positive to take away from all of this, it's that I think it's underscored how much people actually value attending classes, being on campus, interacting with their peers, and are really eager to get back to it. I'm unbelievably proud and can only offer the highest commendation to all of the students who have really risen to the occasion in a way that nobody expected they would have to. Participation, from what I understand, in online courses has been really exceptional. And since we've been able to work with the faculty on achieving pass-fail, I don't think it's going to hurt anybody. I know that students are pretty confident that they know that the university is taking care of them, and that they're going to be able to graduate on time, and that all of this madness is not going to stand in the way. When I've been speaking to everybody, they're obviously nervous and are unsure about how this is going to affect the future. But right now, there's a lot of cautious optimism about how we're going to handle this moving forward, and that when we're out of this, we're going to be able to return to normal with increased vigor and real yearning to get back in the classroom and go back to teaching the way things were here at UofL. So definitely concerns on the student end, but I think overwhelmingly it's positivity and longing for clearly not knowing. I don't think any of us understood how much we did enjoy going to class before this. So I think it's definitely been reinstilled, and people are working really hard and finishing out the semester with just an unbelievable amount of strength and grace. So I'm really proud of all the students to see what they've been doing.
Thank you, Jasper. So Krista, why don't you go ahead and do yours, and then if anybody has questions for any of those three people, they can do it after Krista talks.
Okay, thank you, Beth. I'm honored to speak today to some of those unique challenges that we have addressed in the School of Music. I know across campus faculty have faced a lot of challenges, and some of our perhaps unique classes are in three categories. One is the delivery of applied lessons, which are our one-on-one private teaching. The other is ensembles and how we're moving forward to help our students continue to study scores and prep for when we come back together for some of the festivals that are planned in the fall. And also our recital attendance class, which is a course where students are required to attend live concerts. So for me, I teach applied piano, and one of the challenges that all of the instructors really grappled with very quickly and solved was what is the best platform to work with our students one-on-one, with everyone having different equipment, different speakers, different microphones. How can we best hear the music? So for example, I may be in my studio with a piano, my student is across the state in her home with a piano, and finding that best way to function. And it took a little bit of time. It's different for everyone because the equipment's different. But I'm really proud of our faculty and students that just, they stayed with it, they jumped in, and they found great solutions. Also with our recital attendance, our instructor posted many videos. We took advantage of some of the live streaming concerts that were happening across the country, and combined that with some software called Edpuzzle, which asked questions along the way throughout the concert for the students to keep them engaged, similar to what they might be thinking in a live performance. And then another very unique situation for us in the School of Music is all of the degree recitals that occur throughout the month of March and April. And these are culminating projects for the students, both undergrads and grads, that have worked toward this for many semesters. They give a final degree recital where their family and their friends and colleagues attend. And those had, of course, happen remotely, often just with one student in their home playing for the teacher. And this was a very difficult time for our students because this is normally a big celebration with the community. So I want to draw your attention to the picture on the screen. This is one of the ways that the faculty worked to bring the students back together into community, because it's so important for the students performing and the students listening to have that time together and that time of celebration and acknowledging the work. So you can see our professor, bass Sidney King, his student is playing his bass recital, and all of the students are together on screen. And we even had some alumni join, other people, family members join. And I think this was a great way to help the students not only complete that degree requirement, but also continue to celebrate that with their friends and family. So this was not, it's not a substitute for our live music and our in-person teaching. But I think that we created something really successful within what is our current reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Are there any questions for Candy, Jasper, or Krista? If not, I'll turn it back to Neely. I would like to just say how proud I am of our faculty and our students too. We had almost no complaints from folks for having to do things so differently. And for those of you who know a lot about higher ed, the speed with which we made these changes is remarkable, and people were on board almost from the beginning. So I'm really grateful to the students and to the faculty, and then also to the staff, because we provided a lot of services to students through our staff, being able to turn tutoring and writing center tutors and counseling services all online, and so that our students were able to use the resources of the campus. So thanks to everybody.
No question, it's been remarkable, and we have all commented on how faculty were really trying to put themselves in the students' shoes and say what's going on, and likewise the students who've been incredibly resilient, also working with the faculty, knowing that this is a challenge and that none of us expected to be where we are today. But I echo what Beth said. Neither the students nor the faculty would have been able to get what they wanted to do if it had not been for all the staff that were laboring to make this happen. So everybody, kudos. And now, as I said, we'd like to give you a quick preview of our, not a preview, sorry, an update on our strategic planning, and then we'll actually debut the grand challenges with you. So Gail has been spearheading this for us, and once again, as we said, agility is the name of the game, because we did not expect to be where we are, but I'd like her to share with you how we're taking what we said we would do and figuring out what this means and how we move forward.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to provide you with an update on our progress of our implementation of the strategic plan. Jake, can you go to the first slide? As you remember, the strategic plan was unveiled to our campus and community on September 23rd, 2019, and we began the implementation process immediately afterwards in October, and that will continue until August of 2022. As you remember, this is a 3-year implementation. We have an implementation committee that is made up of 13 people, administrators, and faculty, staff, students, and they are responsible for the oversight of the implementation of the strategic plan. And there are 10 subcommittees, the Grand Challenges Subcommittee, which will identify the university's primary research and scholarship areas, and you'll be hearing more about these grand challenges in just a moment. And then there are 9 other subcommittees, 1 for each of the 3 primary learn, work, and invest strategies in the strategic plan. And we have about 32 subcommittee co-chairs, and there are over 300 faculty, staff, students, alumni, community, and industrial partners who are participating in these subcommittees. So it's we're getting great participation from all across our campus community. The subcommittees have been working and meeting, and they are working towards the targets that were established in the strategic plan. Next slide, please. The progress of the strategic plan implementation is going to be updated regularly on our website. And you can see here an example of what some of our gauges will look like. This is an example of one of the gauges where we will track our progress towards meeting our targets, our year 2022 targets. The majority of the metrics that we use in our strategic plan are measured on an annual basis, either fiscal or academic year. So we'll provide those updates at the next Board of Trustees meeting. But as the President mentioned, we're being nimble and agile in our planning, and we recognize the need to consider the effect of the recent pandemic situation on our university, both in the near term and short and long-term future. So the strategic plan implementation subcommittees were asked to revisit the plan in light of current circumstances and provide comment and recommendations on changes either to the implementation of the plan or to the plan itself. We are still reviewing that feedback from the subcommittee, from the subcommittees, but we are seeing a couple main themes. One is that clearly the financial impacts of this pandemic could have an impact on several of our strategic planning initiatives, and we'll have to figure out how to pivot and best try to meet those goals, but perhaps in a different way than we had originally planned. But another theme that we have seen from the feedback that we've received from the subcommittees is that this pandemic has actually helped accelerate our work in some of the strategic planning areas, including, most notably, the use of technology in our instruction. Over the past few months, the primary effort was developing our grand challenges. These are an integral part of the strategic plan, and they're included in our research agenda as it affects our funding, our contributions to the community, and inclusion of students in research. So it was important to start with them. And with that, I will pass the presentation along to Provost Boehm and EVP Gardner, who will discuss the grand challenges.
Thank you, Gail. I'm really here to serve as a transition between the discussion of, or the update of the strategic plan and the handoff of the plan to grand challenges and Dr. Gardner. Dr. Gardner wasn't here when we started the grand challenges exploration. And we decided back in the summer of last year that grand challenges would be an important part of the strategic plan because it would be the ribbon that ties together learn, work, and invest. So the next slide, I think, will explain what a grand challenge is. They are large societal problems or questions that U of L researchers and scholars can help to solve or answer through transdisciplinary work, bringing people from different disciplines together because the problems are so large that no single discipline can solve that. They're also very important to Research One institutions. We think that grand challenges are a way to invite scholars and researchers to participate in the strategic plan through their research. We also hope to invite instructors and students to learn together as they explore the grand challenges in general education courses and advanced courses in various disciplines that are more specific, but will be focused on solving the grand challenges and studying them. We also hope that the grand challenges will invite our community to invest in our work that seeks to solve these societal problems. So our goals are very aspirational and imaginative, and we hope that these grand challenges will be compelling and set us apart from other institutions because of the problems we choose to explore. So let me make it clear that grand challenges are an aspect of many universities' strategic plans or their research plans, but the challenges we choose, we hope, will be the ones that set us apart. So the next slide, I think, tells us why. So as I said, we want to conduct research that will make a difference for Louisville, the Commonwealth, and the nation, and spur our researchers across disciplines to work together. And then we also hope to develop new sources of funding for research. The next slide shows us the committee members. Our co-chairs were Ted Smith, who's the director of the Envirome Institute, and Kevin Merton, who's the AVP for Research and Innovation. We gave them a set of very accomplished faculty to work with from almost all of our units and colleges, and they together explored what would be characteristics of a grand challenge, including that a grand challenge would build upon research strengths we already had. That is, we don't want to plan on hiring a lot of new faculty. We want to use the faculty we have and the strengths they've already developed. We want those challenges to be open to investigation from multiple disciplines. And we wanted the challenges to be opportunities for external investment, either or both extramural funding and philanthropy. The committee advertised in U of L today. They directly contacted research deans, top funded faculty, Bucks for Brains, and other endowed chairs, the Senates, GLI, and Louisville Metro, among many others. They asked, what societal problems do you think we should be tackling in this? They collected over 200 ideas from faculty and staff and students through a web form. And then the committee continued to take those ideas, list them, modify them, refine the challenges. They continued to meet with groups of faculty, administrators, and others to winnow the list from first to 10, and then to 3. It was a very iterative process, and today you are part of that iteration. Or we are going to show you what 3 we are on and ask for your input. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who is new to our institution, but thrown into the fire immediately. So, Kevin?
Thanks, Beth. It has been pointed out in recent days that the COVID-19 pandemic has truly been a grand challenge, and the response across our community. In fact, from right before this call, we spent an hour with about 125 researchers across the institution, all talking about new collaborations that are desperately needed in order to address the situation, the economic situation, the health situation, the engineering. So we highlighted some of those things before. So it's a great example about how research can help to solve these societal problems. So after the work of the Grand Challenge subcommittee, we ended up with these the highest level themes of empowering our communities, advancing our health, and engineering our future economy. And I'll dig into them a little bit more in the coming slides. But why these? It's really about the intersection of the expertise and research excellence that we have here at University of Louisville, along with what it says here, the fabric of UofL. It's kind of the identity of the institution. And then also the importance to the future of Louisville, to the future of Kentucky, and the future of the nation. So these are really forward-looking types of issues that we're addressing. Next, please, Jake. So the first one, empowering our communities. What does this mean? Well, this is about University of Louisville being a premier metropolitan research university. And we have what are called research priorities here. They could be thought of as pillars or research thrusts. So these are around the real depth of research excellence that we have here in improving educational attainment, preventing violence and trauma, and confronting inequities of many different types, social, economic, and health disparities. Next, please. And I think that you'll see, if you're familiar with the research that goes on here, you'll see the real strength of research in these different research priorities. So the second one is advancing our health across the lifespan. And this has three research pillars also: revealing, decoding, and influencing the social and environmental factors that promote health, leveraging the power of our immune systems, and preventing disease and disability rather than simply treating it. So these are tremendous strengths that we have, not just in our School of Medicine, but across many other schools of nursing and social work and many others. Next, please. And then the last one, the last grand challenge, engineering our future economy, is all about the future of work. And the future of work involves digital transformation. It involves technology. And the three research thrusts here are developing and harnessing technological advancements for digital and robotic transformation of the workforce, use of automation and things like that, advances in manufacturing and development of new materials. For example, the Additive Manufacturing Institute that you heard about earlier today. And then the last one is processes for a new energy economy, reflecting the great strengths we have in energy and development of new and clean energy sources. So those are the three, along with the three thrusts that are underneath those. We are in the feedback phase right now. We're getting feedback from across the university community. There's a video up that people can watch to learn about what these are in more detail. And there's a feedback form. We're having research town halls with people to get their feedback on these items and refine them to really make them speak to the faculty and research and staff and researchers that we have on this campus. So what's next? So there's investment in these themes in terms of faculty and centers and institutes aligning around these, the way we've aligned around the COVID-19 work already across disciplines. And then it really requires us to engage with community partners, both business and industry partners, community organization partners. And when we do this, when we come together across disciplines and we engage with the important partners in the community, that's when we develop research that really makes a difference in people's lives. And so we're open to feedback from the broad community. The board of trustees, of course, will be taking this out to other entities in the region as well as we move forward.
Kevin, while we wait for any questions, Jake, would you take us back to the slide that lists all 3 grand challenges, please? In the meantime, are there any questions? Yeah, that's the one. Perfect. I just thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Beth, and Gail, very, very much. Gail, this is one part of many things that she is shepherding through. So as we think about grand challenges, one more time, let me acknowledge both Ted Smith and Kevin Martin, who've done an amazing job of chairing this. Those of you who know academe know that it's not easy for a whole bunch of experts to sit around and agree on broad themes that cover everybody. But I wanted to just lay out for you that there is a method to how we brought this up. The first and foremost, why did we start with empowering our communities? The idea is that it's not that we have all the magic answers and we come, but that we need to empower our communities to figure out what is the best solution for each community. It is communities because we realize we serve many, many communities. You've heard me talk about the ripple effect. That's something I believe in, that the University of Louisville should be a huge force for the good for Louisville, for the Commonwealth, for the country, and beyond. And so we'll be very mindful of that we need to make a difference right here in Louisville. This, again, you heard Dr. Gardner say, this fits with the fabric. This fits with our DNA. I love to remind you all that we're one of only 69 universities in the whole world that are both R1 for the highest level of research, as well as the highest level of community engagement. So we want to stay true to that and begin with that function, that we empower our communities. And this means that the whole host of activities, whether it's in the arts, in the humanities, it's the sciences, it's engineering, we always begin with the big picture view of we are here to empower our communities. And then if you go down a little bit from that broad view, now it comes back to advancing our health. And through the environment, before I get to that, when we talk about health, certainly our healthcare enterprise, the physical and mental health of individuals that we are paying attention to is incredibly important. You've heard of some of the research that's happening here that is so impactful. But we also realize that beyond genetics, there are so many environmental factors that impact health. And this we're studying through the Christina Lee Brown Envirome Institute. I will put this, there you go. You've seen this, we call this a circle of health and harmony. So we're trying to address physical health, nutritional health, financial health, cultural health, intellectual health. I could go on and on. It's a holistic view of the individual's health. So what are the environmental factors that determine it? How do we make sure we keep the individual healthy? So the health of the community, the health of the individual. The third aspect of it is we are using the word engineering our future economy very purposefully. We have great strength in engineering, but please don't think this is restricted only to engineering. It is, if you think about the individual at work, what does that mean? We will need design thinking. We'll need everybody to think about what is the future of work and how do we position everybody for the greatest success possible. And I just want to say that it is good practice to build on the strengths we have. It's naive to say we'll be great at everything or that we will be all things to all people. So these 3 themes, our hope is that every individual at UofL will be able to see a way that they contribute to one of these big challenges. And I will pause again to see if there are any questions or comments. We also did vet it, as you heard. We tried to look at both the city and the state for long term, that these are things that would matter and make a difference.
The only thing I'll add, Neely, just to add to that, I think that's really well said. These really are tremendous research strengths that are unique to the University of Louisville. The types of things where we are super competitive on the national stage, and that's something that defines these as well.
All right. Again, please feel free to send us any feedback. I hope you are as excited about this as we all are. We really see these as differentiators, and we're excited about getting to work on it. I'd like now to switch to our financial updates. And so before we go to athletics and health sciences, I'd like to have Dan Durbin walk you through what our financials are. And once again, as I said, everyone on the team has been exceptional. Something that I find very unique about this team is we don't sit on turfs, this is my area, this is my lane, you can't provide input. So we'll have Tom Miller talk to us about enrollment management and what should we be doing, or Vince might say, here's something that we can do on HR, and vice versa. Beth would say, have advice. So it's really been a wonderful team effort, and two individuals who worked exceptionally hard during this process are Mary Elizabeth Miles from HR and Dan Durbin with finance, because they have had to help me navigate across all of these different areas. So I'm thankful to them, and I'd like to turn it over to Dan.
Thank you. What we're going to review over the next few minutes is an executive summary of a larger packet that was also sent to you. The larger packet has a lot of footnotes and variance explanations, but for the sake of the time, I'll go through and hit some of the high points, if you will. Jake, can we hit the next slide? There we go. Okay, so I guess this is through the end of March, the third quarter accrual-based results, and it's right before the world changed, frankly. And through the end of March, year to date, I think the best way I could describe our financial activity and our progress would be two words. Number one, consistent, and number two, stable. Consistent in that we are tracking with plan, we were tracking with our plans, and we were also tracking with last year. So there were no big surprises, no big bad surprises that we were seeing on the horizon, as we worked through the end of the third quarter, and was also stable. Our cash was in very good position. Our assets were increasing. Our liabilities were decreasing. And again, that's through the end of March until, again, the world changed. But as we look at the specific numbers through the end of March, we ended the year to date with about $965 million worth of revenues, first column. And we also spent about $810 million in expenses. Now, the increase in the net position of $153 million is it's a little surprising, but it's driven by that number is driven by one thing. And that one thing is highlighted in the revenue section. The 143,984. Those are the value of capital assets, and within that 143 million, 132 million of that represents the value of the Kentucky One healthcare assets that we brought onto our books. The university, there was no acquisition cost for the university, but in order to take advantage of some government reimbursement programs, we house those in the university. Those are owned by the university. They're part of the university. They're on our books. So we have to recognize the value of those assets. It's not cash coming to us. It's the value of the assets. So as we looked at the $153,804,000 increase in net position, and we pulled the value of those assets out, those capital assets out, we ended the year through the end of March with an increase in our net position or performance of a positive $9.8 million. Which is about $21 million better than the year before. So, we were consistently outperforming last year, and we were stable. We had some areas of pretty high performing revenues, clinical services, grants and contracts, as Kevin mentioned earlier, and we also had increase in tuition and fees based on the 2.5% fee increase we put in place earlier this year. And expenses are we're in check as well. As you can see, there's a decrease in salaries and wages. The reason that that occurred is because last year there was an accrual of about $13 million for the football coach, for the buyout on the football coach. So when you take that $13 million out, we were about even. You know, all things considered and normalized at the end of the third quarter, we were about even in terms of our personnel spending. On supplies and services, we were about $14 million greater than last year. Frankly, about $10 million of that is attributed to items that also had revenue attributed to them. In other words, we had higher grant numbers, higher grant revenues of 10 million. So of course we're going to spend more of those grant dollars. And we also had some timing issues in terms of we made some payments before the fourth quarter, whereas last year we made them during the fourth quarter. So a little bit of timing issue. But again, through the end of March, we had good solid performance of about a $9.8 million increase in net position after the capital, and we did perform better than last year. So Jake, would you mind going to the next slide? Okay. Again, back to the consistency and the stability. As we look at the balance sheet, you'll see that our cash, we actually had, we're making progress in terms of cash. Our unrestricted cash was up by almost $25 million. Our total assets were increasing, even excluding the capital assets. We had an increase in assets. Our liabilities were decreasing, and as a result, our net position and especially our unrestricted net position under the net position section, the very last row, was increasing as well. So, showing an improvement and an increase as well. So, you know, the balance sheet and also the income statement, if you will, or statement of net position, were both through the end of March very stable and also very consistent with last year. No big surprises. Nothing really popped out as being wrong. Okay. Would you mind going to the next one, Jake? Okay. Now, the world changed on April 1st, basically, and one of the things that we've talked about in the past is how did we feel it was going to change? What were the financial risks, and what we were going to do about it? And frankly, from my perspective, cash position is vital to maintain during a crisis like this. Cash is king. If you could go to the next slide, Jake. This is the slide that we've seen many times before, only with a minor edit for the rest of this year. The black line at the very top is the cash position for this year. The two lines below it are the cash positions for the last couple of years. Now, you'll notice that in August and in January, we have spikes in cash. When tuition payments come in, we have spikes in our cash balances, and we spend those cash balances out over the next few months toward the end of the fiscal year and also the end of the calendar years, whether it's the fall or the spring tuition revenues we received. Now, if you'll focus on the black line through February and March, you'll see that March, we ended the month of March with about $140 million of cash in the bank. Now, as those trends start as we start to work through the quarter, the last few months of the year, and spend that cash, the cash balance decreases, and you'll see that in almost each and every year before that. Last year, the green line was a little bit different because in the month of June we had some pretty significant inflows of cash because of some projects and some arrangements and some things that came that happened in June. For example, a $10 million payment from Norton for the pediatrics integration, and we also had about a $5 million a revenue share from our hospital. So we picked up a lot of cash in June of last year. So it made it a little different than the year before. But what you'll see is that between March and the end of the fiscal year, we typically burn off about $25–30 million of cash. And it's just normal because of the peaks and valleys of how we collect cash. Now, if COVID-19 would have never happened, and it would have been business as usual. The yellow line is where we felt the trend was moving based on our budgets, based on how we were spending. Again, assuming COVID-19 didn't exist, we felt that we would end the year with around 110, maybe $115 million worth of cash, kind of right in between the last couple of years' cash balances. However, COVID-19 did happen. And it had about a $39 million risk to our financial situation. And if we would have left COVID-19, all those risks, if we would have just played out and let those happen without any corrective measures, you can see from the red line what would have happened. We would have ended the year with about $71 million of cash. And frankly, that is dangerously, dangerously low, especially when you consider that a payroll and fringe benefits, the monthly payroll and the fringe benefit costs are about between $50 and $55 million. Debt service is a couple of $1 million. Utilities are a couple $1 million. And there's a lot of other fixed payments that are in that. So it doesn't take long when you have a cash balance that low. It doesn't take long for bad things to happen really quickly, and you find yourself in a very difficult cash position. So the option of doing nothing because of COVID-19 wasn't really an option. So that was what, frankly, one of the things that drove the need to mitigate the risks that we had identified with COVID-19. Before I move on to those risks and the mitigation strategies, are there any questions on the income statement or the statement of net position and the balance sheet or the cash positions?
Dan, just give it another minute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Jake, would you mind? Next slide. Okay, when we think about the risks of of COVID-19, there are several, and they all amount in total. They aggregate about $39 million. And what we want to show is kind of each one of those components and how each one of those risk components kind of drill us a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper toward that $40 million, $39 million to be exact. And then the strategies that we've used to help kind of bring things back to that cash position that we need to maintain. And that cash position is also very, very critical because of the fact that we don't know how long this thing's going to last. You know, even though this only runs through June 30th, we're also working on plans for beyond June 30th, beyond July 1. So it's important to be as strong as we can on June 30th, again, to counter whatever can happen in beyond that. Okay, so again, the risks that we talked about, I think we talked about last meeting, the tuition risks, the clinical losses, refunds, and just the other operating costs related to that, and then also the mitigation strategies in blue. About well over a month ago, we implemented the hiring, travel, and non-essential spending strategies. We brought over 550 traditional face-to-face classes during the summer to online. We think we'll mitigate at least about $11 million of that risk with tuition. We've made a lot of impact in our dental school and some contractual adjustment, or not contractual adjustments, but contractual relations that we have with some of our vendors, mainly food services, and also CARES Act funding, about $6.2 million. We're scheduled to receive $6.2 million, but we'll also see about another $6.2 million that goes out to students for emergency financial aid that we'll be dispersing over the next couple of months. And last, but as I mentioned on the video, certainly, unfortunately unleashed, we have about $13 million worth of other strategies that we have to deploy to be able to get us back to where we need to be. The first of which was the administrative salary reductions, then the stoppage or the withholding, if you will, of the retirement contributions, and then finally the furloughs that we're implementing right now. So those are the strategies that we need to be able to kind of bring ourselves back up to where we need to be, so that we can again have adequate funds to operate and move into next year with. And just for the sake of transparency and comprehensiveness, I wanted to also provide you with kind of the more detail behind the waterfall chart that you looked at a few moments ago. The components of the $39 million risk, a little more detail on what they are. Would you mind turning one more slide? There you go. The first set of actions that we took, ranging from the savings programs to the CARES Act funding, about $26 million, and then finally, do you mind turning the one more? There we go. And then finally, the $13 million of savings that we've just implemented earlier this week, with the reductions in the retirement contributions and the furloughs. So again, this is it's an imperfect situation. It's a difficult situation, but we tried to develop strategies that were as employee friendly and as least harmful as possible to the institution and the students and also the employees. So with that, I'd take any question you might have, or if you have additional questions as you go through the more comprehensive materials in the board packet, I'd be happy to answer them offline via email or telephone or however you wish.
Oops. All right, Dan, I thank you. And for all members of the board, I will tell you that one of the first things I told Dan maybe almost a year ago is how carefully, methodically he will explain sincerely and with expertise what is going on. So right now we thought after a year, this time it was time because we wanted every employee to know what actions we're taking and why. So he created a video, and I'm so thankful. I know we've shared it with you all. We've had a lot of people comment on it, saying that they appreciated the openness and that they appreciated the way in which he explained every single piece. So we'll continue to do that. Dan had already started on not only a long-term budget, beyond 1 year, but also better understanding of our financials. My hope, sincerely, is that everyone who works at the university understands exactly what our financial position is, why we are where we are, and the steps we are taking. And that's a goal that Dan shares as well. So happy to answer any questions. We've sent it to you. Whether now or later, please reach out to us. But we just wanted to show you that we are being at the forefront and doing the best we can to mitigate the considerable risk in this situation. If not, thank you. Could we go to the next section, Jake? We have Vince coming up. And again, on athletics, there has been a bigger hit, as you can imagine, with what's going on. And both he and I have been very involved at the ACC and trying to figure out what's happening. And Vince has been taking a leadership role there as well. So I'd like to have him walk you through what's going on in athletics. Vince?
Yep. Thank you, Neely. There's a couple slides here we'll go through, and it's just more high-level coverage. I know we updated the board informally at the beginning of the month, so I'll go through these. But probably most notable is NCAA and what's occurred over the last 6 weeks. As most know, the NCAA and ACC canceled all the winter sports championships, most notably the March Madness and any tournaments or activities related to swimming and all the other sports. The spring sports activities were also canceled. So originally it was practices and games, and then it led to championships and so forth. And and that created a whole another wave of legislative considerations. And I've just highlighted a couple here. One was legislation related to protect a seasons of competition for seniors that were in the spring sports. So if they were in their senior season, and it was obviously canceled, and they wanted to come back next year, if the school permitted it, they were allowed to come back and accept where they left off, going back to school, go to graduate school, what have you, second major, and then they could have up to the financial aid or scholarship aid that they had at that point, but we couldn't offer them any more than that. So they could have less or equal to what they've currently been offered. And we've decided to honor the NCAA legislation related to that. The budget impact at this point, we were conservative originally, thinking it'd be around 550,000. It's now around 300,000 after we've had more time to talk to those potential student athletes. And keep in mind that spring sport athletes are generally on partial scholarships. So the number that it impacted was there was about 36 potential athletes that this pertained to, and we'll have less than 15 that will likely move forward with us next spring. We're waiting the Major League Baseball draft and what they're deciding to do with their draft, number of rounds and so forth, and that'll dictate what happens with our baseball team. The other thing that changed is the dead period, which means where coaches cannot have official, unofficial visits with recruits. So through May 31st, so as you can imagine, it's happening just the way we're communicating today. And I've been a part of those recruiting, video conferencing at times. They have to be initiated by the prospective student athlete, and then we would get on with the coach and talk to their family and so forth. So, that I don't know, where that'll go. Obviously, once we get back into a normal rhythm, whenever that you want to deem normal is when we'll figure out when officials and unofficials will be allowed back on campus. Our expectation is that's looking towards July, not June at this point. Summer activities and fall sports are under review. As you can imagine, summer activity is more about, can they be on campus? What can they be doing? Can coaches be providing coaching and time with them? There's a lot happening there from all the Power 5 conferences to sort out what should be allowed and not allowed in terms of even on, can you do coaching through a video and things like that, which is restricted at this time. You're not allowed to do any coaching of any athletic activities today. So that's under a lot of review. And then obviously the biggest focus and the biggest economic impact is college football. And, that there's a lot happening there at the ACC level, at the NCAA level. And that falls in line again with the NFL, a pro sports league, because once you get out to the spring, you have a combine and an NFL draft, and it really gets to where you've got to have a number of parallel plans in place. We had a call again this morning. We're meeting as ADs in the ACC a few times a week, and today we discussed it again as to how would we potentially have a 13-week window to play 12 scheduled games, and how late could you go in the year to actually start the season should the virus implications continue. So, and then even looking out to the spring, what if it went to the spring, and where would you start and stop on that, and would you truncate the schedule? So there's a number of parallel paths being followed. A lot of great committee work going on here inside the conference and at the NCAA, and obviously it's the pandemic will dictate, and the government officials and NCAA will dictate where that comes out and when we decide it's safe to go back into competition and safe for fans to be back into the venues. Another piece of legislation that's had a great deal of attention, name, image, and likeness legislation. It's continuing to move forward. So this is related to our student athletes having the ability to market and merchandise their own name, image, and likeness, and what are the guardrails around this. Right now, the NCAA's intention is to continue to move forward. We're on a lot of discussions and committee meetings on this as well. The likelihood is it will get to a vote in January of 21, and then likely implemented in April of 21. So this is a tricky one. This gives the student athletes the ability to, as I say, make compensation outside or over and beyond their scholarships, and do a variety of things, which right now there's a lot of confidential stuff I'm not at liberty to unveil, but it's more dynamic than I thought it was going to be. And then one-time transfer legislation. We have 5 sports, such as basketball and football, that if they transfer, they have to sit out a year. And many of the Olympic sports, you can transfer and play immediately. And it looks like there's legislation momentum moving forward here that would allow the student athletes to transfer and be immediately eligible. It would be a one-time. You can't transfer multiple times and be immediately eligible, but one-time transfer. And if they're in good academic standing, they would be able to do that. And this is to eliminate the number of waiver requests and all that's going on in the major sports that's occurring today. But it may minimize the number of requests, but I still see waivers going on that the people have figured out loopholes around saying, you know, I've got a sick family member, I need to be closer to home. I want to transfer from whatever, Louisiana to Louisville because I got a family member in Shelbyville. So there's a number of things. I think they're trying to figure out how to close down the loopholes here. But I guess my point being, these are just highlights. I could give you another 10 legislative pieces that are being looked at today and are quick decisions being made around each of those sports. And, we'll see this play out over time. The next page, just to give you an update on some of the current initiatives and really our response to the economic impact of the virus. We've had all our facilities shut down for a month with exception of training rooms. So for those student athletes who have had an injury or rehabbing, the training rooms are still open. We follow all the CDC guidelines when it comes to that. We've got protocols in place to deal with how we have the training rooms open and obviously limit the number of staff that are they're treating them. And we're only talking a small amount of student athletes because many have returned home during this time. There's not many that are on campus today or around campus. But other than that, everyone's been working remotely, and we've formulated a plan over the next month on how we're going to operate as long as this virus goes on with still getting things done. And again, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of administrative things going on around legislation that's happening. As it relates to our financials in the current fiscal year, you can see here we were hoping for one of our best years in a long time. It's certainly come down. The revenue is down maybe about $5 million, but we've been able to offset a number of the variable costs related to the championships, related to other factors. And, we were forecasting what was going to be a much better year, but it's probably in that $3 up to $4 million range at this point. We were hoping to be up closer to $5 million, but our team has done a great job. We were quick to act literally over the weekend, that May 13, 14, 15 timeframe where we were quick to shut down equipment purchases, supplies, travel cards, a number of things. It was really quick reaction and great response. And we've been able to shut down a lot of those expenses and are now looking at, we were hoping to have a much bigger profit to roll over to offset some of the deficit we were facing in fiscal year 21. But at this point, we'll take what we can and use that to bridge for next year. As it relates to next year, from our original budget to where we are to this revised budget, there's approximately a $15 million delta. That comes from, if you looked at the various areas, football obviously is one of them, basketball to a lesser degree, and then donations and licensed product. Certainly retail's closed up today. Nobody's buying a lot of merchandise with the Louisville logos and the Cardinal head and so forth. So that does have a direct impact as we're sitting here today, and those sales aren't occurring at the rate that we would like. Online purchases are occurring, but we've factored that in. So we went through every single line item of the sports and what we do in the stadium and what we're able to create through our relationship with Learfield and CLC, who handles our licensing and marks. And, trying to be honest to the situation, 15 million is the number that we came back with, and then worked hard to figure out where we were going to find it. With about a third of it, as you can see here, comes from salary and benefit reductions. I've obviously taken another pay cut, another 10%. I'm foregoing this year and next year's bonus opportunities of $300,000, and then donated $10,000 to the staff assistance fund. We set up a separate fund in athletics because at the time, before frankly Randy and the rest of the board of trustees were so gracious with your wallet, I was worried that we didn't have enough funds in the the university's staff assistance fund. So we worked with John Smith, who's head of the staff senate, to set up a separate fund related to some of the athletic employees that, as you know, we've been pretty aggressive in our moves there too, and felt like if I could get one set up there under generally the same guidelines and get some money in that to assist some of our employees that are being furloughed or not renewed at the end of June, that would be helpful. So John's been great in that regard, Mike Wade Smith and others that have watched us kind of create this. The head coaches have accepted concessions to their contracts, which they're not obligated to do, but 10% from their compensation. Senior staff, I've got 12 senior staff that also was willing to concede 10% reductions. We have staff under 100,000, 2% reduction, staff over 100,000, 4%. Yesterday, related to our budget, around 95 positions were impacted. 44 of those were furloughed. We are required by their annual contracts to give them a 30-day notice, which we did. Then at the end of May, we've given them another 60 days out that they would be furloughed. We have the ability to, with 2 weeks notice, to call them back if need be and sporting activities are happening, or frankly extended if things have not been or not at a place where we're comfortable. We're going to need those variable staff members at that time. We have 32 that we say, are non-renewal, meaning their contracts are up at the end of June 30th and won't be renewed for the following fiscal year. And then we had vacant positions. We have about 10 or so right now that are sitting that we've been under a hiring freeze for the last 6 weeks, which we imposed right away. And then we had an additional 9 that were in the budget for next year, so that's why the number seems higher than what you might have heard yesterday in the mid 80s. Is looking at the budget next year, there were some intended, lesser positions, I'll say, or support positions that were going to go around nutrition, grad assistants, just a variety of different positions. Administrative sports budgets, we cut, effectively across the board 15% on sports budgets. So about $7 million. That's travel is a big one for team sports as well as non-team sport travel. It comes in a variety of other methods that we went through, but a lot of variable expense related to activity-based things. And then we have another bucket of other expenses that we reduced about $3 million to get there, which, financial aid is a piece of that. What we may have been spending in summer school may not be happening with the student athletes on campus. Manager aid, there's a variety of things that go into that quickly make up $3 million. The last thing I can say is, we've, during this process, and Neely noted it before she turned this over to me, was the amount of collaboration that's going on across campus. It's been, frankly, it's been enjoyable for me to be a part of what Dan Durbin's been working on and the rest of the leadership. Mary Elizabeth Miles, certainly we've helped try to shape a lot of these things from language and furloughs and looking at the financial budget, looking at different ways that we can share knowledge. The athletic budget is more volatile than the academic budget. And that's why we had to take these measures and take a deeper look and a deeper percentage cut, not just in the compensation, but in the overall budget because of what we see forthcoming. So we're out in front of it, in my mind. We've been proactive on it. I know there's a number of universities that have not acted as strongly at this point as we have, although I will tell you, even today, I fielded more questions about what we're doing and how we're doing it from other ADs. So, and on Monday, I'll be hosting a roundtable for Division I athletic directors on the process. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Neely. If there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Vince, very much. I'll wait to see if there are any questions. But as I said, across the board, we have been at the forefront, and a big part of it is just being courageous and tackling what has to be done. So I'm grateful. Now I'd like to turn this over to Tom. And the university is such an interesting place because of, as I said, the different areas and how each of them has its own challenges, and we're trying to do our best. But probably no one has been working harder than Tom Miller because we have about 10,000 employees across the UofL health system and trying to figure out what we do, how we provide the very best care. He has been doing a tremendous job. And I also want to thank Dean Tony Ganzel, because she and Vice President Dean Tony Ganzel, because they've been working very closely to figure out how to make sure that we provide great care at this time. So I'd like to have Tom come up and present.
Thanks, Neely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, thanks. Jake, if you go to the first slide, before I talk about COVID-19, I want to just talk about other work that we have going on. We've been still working on the Kentucky One Health integration during this whole COVID-19 process. As you know, we had day one objectives that we had to complete. We have day 90 objectives that we completed, and we're on day 180. The biggest part of those open items really had to do with IT services. We're purchasing about $22 million a year in IT services from Kentucky One, and slowly getting off of those. And we had established targets for us to be off of those. First one comes off the end of this month, which is our purchasing and financial systems. Those will come off, and we will have implemented new solutions for that for across the network. The second is Meditech, which is the clinical product that is being used at Mary Elizabeth Hospital and Peace Hospital, not meaningfully certified. But Kentucky One was hosting that, and they were charging us a significant amount of money. We found an independent vendor who would host that for us at about $2 million less a year. So we'll be transitioning on June 1st and are on target to do that. And then our business office functions, which is all of our billing and collection services. I think, as you know, an outside vendor has been doing that for Kentucky One Health for several years, called Conifer. They're based in Texas, in the Philippines, and there are some members that are here. Our goal was to get off those services, and in part of the performance that we established, we thought that we could do a better job collecting it locally than they were doing. That is still on target for a July 1st date to have that completed, and we're looking forward to that. We're in the process of hiring about 200 people to be able to staff up those business offices, but know that we'll be able to do it in a much more positive way than has been happening. In addition to that, our physician IT services have been done by a company called Allscripts. We have been moving to a company called Epic. Epic is probably the number one IT provider for physician practices. It's due to be accomplished for the community medical group side by December, second week in December, and for the academic side by the end of the first quarter of 2021. And then all of our clinical hospital products will be moved over to Cerner by the end of the first quarter of 21. These are heroic efforts that have been happening by IT. We have continued to work on these, even though none of the vendors can actually send people to the community because they can't get back. And we've been working through conferences to fully get these products up and going. And right now, we're on target to hit each one of these dates, which are the next key dates for us. In addition, the only other outstanding item that is left with Kentucky One is to complete the working capital resolution with CHI. As you know, they agreed to provide us a certain amount of working capital. We're going through the final phases of completing that, and do anticipate that being done within the next couple of weeks. It should be positive for us. I don't know exactly what that number is, but we're working through the details. But my commitment to you was not to have a situation like we had several years ago, where the universities, the accounts receivable that we received when we separated from CHI, had to have a huge write-off. We anticipate that will not happen. That's part of working through this final resolution with CHI. On the second item, and that's really COVID-19, and I will tell you, we have heroes at our organization across the 6 hospitals, both doctors, nurses, housekeepers, who have never been hesitant about taking care of patients. And they come to work every single day. They're wanting to know how they can help. And whether it's the sickest patients in the ICU or those who are just walking through our doors, they are always willing to do whatever they can to help individuals, and this is greatly appreciated. From an administrative standpoint, we've had some very defined priorities. First is making sure that we have PPE in an adequate supply, and that is the personal protective equipment for our staff so that we can keep them safe. Our supply chain group has done everything in their power, from buying from China directly to Korea to getting things from the UK, and been able to make sure that we've had an adequate supply, even though our main supplier has not been able to provide stock to us. And so we have an adequate supply today to get us through the surge, and feel comfortable that we'll be able to continue to get our staff safe. We implemented about 3 weeks ago a universal mask protocol, which means that every staff member in the hospitals are to wear a mask or in the doctor's offices, just out of the abundance of caution. And that has helped to make sure that we have not seen the spread within our own staff. I think we only have 10 members out today of our staff that are out of work because they are presumptive COVID positive. None of those received it as a result of working in the organization. They received it as a result of the community exposure. And we've seen very little staff actually. I think we've only had one person actually who we've validated got taking care of a patient. And that says a lot for our staff in doing the right things. The second major priority for us is making sure that testing becomes more available. So we've been doing for the last 3 weeks about 100 community tests based on the needs of our doctors. We have been using the research lab that Kevin talked about. They've been providing resources for us and for all the hospitals in the community. We had no test if it wasn't for that lab. And so it's been extraordinarily valuable to us. Our goals are to increase the testing. You heard the governor says he wants to do 20,000 tests a week within the state. We now have opened up 2 sites, and we'll be opening an additional sites for the community testing. Park Duval was opened up yesterday. They're going to see about 50, I think, today. And so we're opening up the community testing and feel like we had that capabilities to do that. The third key for us was planning for surge capabilities. And what I mean by that is, if you've looked on the TV and you've seen New York and the issues that they've been going through, there was an expectation that would happen in Louisville, that we didn't have enough beds, that we didn't have enough ventilators. So on a normal basis, we have about 900 patients a day in our hospitals. During this time where we've been social isolating and not been allowed to do elective procedures, we've been running about 700 patients in our hospitals. We were able to look at every place that could provide oxygen within our organization, and had the ability to add an additional 1,000 beds across our hospitals, so we could take care of about 1,700 patients. That meant getting beds, that meant getting supplies, that means planning for it. As the state was planning to use the fairgrounds for setting up 2,000 beds, it was our goal to make sure that we did our part in making sure that was able to do that. And we have plans associated with that. We're not going to have to execute those plans from a surge capacity. This week is the surge week. We have not seen any significant increase in inpatient volume. There are more people who are testing positive because we're doing more tests, but we have not been stressed out. Again, we're about 200 patients a day less than where we would have been had this not occurred. The problem with that is pretty straightforward, which is it has caused a bit of a financial crisis within our organization. Our physician practices are down 60% on volumes and just having patient visits coming in. Our surgical areas are down 66% in the hospitals and 90% in the ASCs. And they're down for all the right reasons, which is to make sure that we continue to have plenty of PPE, that we have beds available in case there was a surge, and that we are socially isolating. We have 700 of our doctors who now have telemedicine services. We had none before this crisis began. We have about 600 people working from home because we didn't have the capabilities to socially isolate them. Most of those are in the business office functions within the organization. So I think, for all the right reasons, we've seen this. We've got all our surge capabilities ready. It's a great thing that we're not going to use it. The problem with the lack of elective procedures is we have felt like, because we didn't know if a surge was coming, we would generally have to keep our staff employed during this time, because we couldn't take a chance that we all of a sudden had 200 new patients overnight and didn't have any staff to take care of them. We did ask for volunteers because of the schools being out, for people to stay home and agree to stay home without pay. We had over 200 of our staff do that, and we had an additional 200 who took PTO and vacation time during this crisis period. The effect on that, obviously, is we'll go into it in a second. You'll see, but it's been a significant revenue issue. We're down significant revenue from where we were last year. We're now working on plans to open up elective procedures. The governor will announce this afternoon the plan that he has, which would allow for office visits to begin next week, elective surgeries to begin the week after, and then inpatient surgeries to begin the week after that. And so, not saying that it'll be easy for us to get back, but we've lost about a full month of revenue during this time. And again, we do about $1.2 billion a year in revenue, so it's significant numbers, of a little over $100 million a month in revenues. And it's our goal to try to get that back before the end of the first quarter, before the end of September of this year. Try to open back up the offices, do extra hours, to have weekend surgicals, elective surgeries, but try to open the hospital back up. So a lot of things have gone on. I think we've done a phenomenal job at trying to make sure that we've kept the community safe. The university lab has helped us out so much in trying to get testing done. And so now we're moving to the next phase. Jacob, you go to the next page. Just related to that is community support. I can't tell you how much we've had in regard to community support, from local restaurants, people buying lunches for our staff, for the whole hospital for a particular day, to one of the local vendors providing iPads to us so that we could do video visits with patients' families, since they weren't able to visit during this time, to GE, who provided us with all of their PPE that they had, as well as the university research labs, who had extra PPE and provided that to us so that we would be able to do that. But the community support has just been phenomenal, and it's very appreciated. And I can give you so many stories. Hope you've seen some of them, because a lot of them have been picked up by the media, but just so many stories about that. The next part is community board meetings. As you know, we have 6 different hospitals. We've established 6 different boards besides the UofL Health Board, which is the oversight board, just to make sure that we have the voice of the community supporting our hospitals, and to really reinitialize local businesses supporting our hospitals by being engaged. All those have met once and have gone very well. I think it's going to be a great exercise in really regard to reestablishing our hospitals as the local community providers. During this COVID-19 process, we have backed away from our strategic plans and budgets. We'll be beginning that process to have those done by June. We have done pay reductions for our physicians and the leadership teams within our hospitals that are consistent generally with the universities. And still during this time, we've been able to hire 100 nurses, and we need 280, but it's been difficult to find some of these. No one wants to leave their job during this time for lots of good reasons. But we've been able to hire 100 since the last board meeting, which is a real positive. From a financial standpoint, if you look at Kentucky One and the acquisition of Kentucky One and University that occurred November 1st through February, we were positive about $17 million in regard to our financials on a budget where we anticipated to lose about $4.8 million. So we were doing well in controlling the cost associated with it, integrating the service lines up until February. And what's happened after February is unrelated to the ability to manage these hospitals, but it is related to the fact that we stopped doing elective procedures. Again, that represents it's going to represent about $100 million over this period of time. It caused March's EBITDA to be about a negative $12 million, and April's projection is about a negative $22 million. We had projected the same amount of loss in May, but now that we're going to be able to open up, we're reprojecting it. We have, though, during this process, we've gotten support in two major areas. One is the state has helped us with getting PPE. They did have a strategic supply that was available. We called on them 4 times to help us with masks and shields and gowns, and they have stepped up and helped us significantly. And then the federal government, through the CARES Act, has helped. They've not been able to help us with any supplies. Matter of fact, they've done the opposite. They've rerouted most of our supplies to the harder hit areas of the country, but they have helped us from a financial standpoint. We received about 2 weeks ago in the CARES Act about a $19.3 million grant. That grant is based on the cost that we would have in taking care of these patients. It's greatly appreciated because it helps us out. That was received in April, so it will go against that April loss. We also received half of the $10 million payments from the Jewish Heritage Foundation in April, so we received $5 million, and we received the second part of the St. Mary's and Jewish Hospital Foundation. We received another $2.5 million, so we received 5 of that $10 million. I think, as you're aware, the state economic development loan was approved by the governor. We did receive those funds. Part of what we're using those funds is we've invested about $40 million in capital within the Kentucky One facilities. Much of that has gone to IT, but we've been able to also buy 3D mammograms. We're buying new cath labs. And so that money is being well used to help us reinvest back in the hospitals. We also took out a working capital loan that we had of $30 million. We have paid that now back. So we don't have any working capital loan, but it was available to us. And then there was something called the Medicare Accelerated Payment Process. That was part of the CARES Act, where the hospitals, to help during this time frame, can request up to 6 months of advance payments for their Medicare patients. We did make that request. We received that in last Friday. That was $130.5 million of advance payments. That has to be paid back. It's due to be paid back in the middle of August, but it's helped us during this financial crunch to make sure that we don't get behind in our payroll or any other issues. So from a cash flow standpoint, we're actually okay, even though we've been hit with some difficult times with our revenues. So I will tell you that it's been as positive as you can be during this time. The last thing I wanted to go over is you as a board have requested us to put together a dashboard for general oversight for your standpoint. We worked with Randy and others and put together these 18 items that we have placed on a dashboard, color-coded, that would be coded as green, which would be doing well, yellow, at risk, and red, that we're behind. These look at key aspects of the organization. Quality measures being 7 of the 18 measures are quality measures. These are all based on indexes versus a national benchmark called Vizient that looks at hospitals that are teaching hospitals, and a mortality, length of stay, readmissions, patient engagement, employee satisfaction, nursing vacancies. On the academic side, the mission support that we're providing to the university, the IGT monies that are provided through the Physician Practice School of Medicine, how many residents we're actually supporting financially, and then clinical research projects at the hospital that are part of the clinical research of the research components of the university. Community measures, access to care, and we thought that was an important measure, and we're really measuring that by the number of visits that we have every day. We do about 3,000 visits a day within our practices, and trying to make sure that access is important for everyone. And then meeting the needs of those that are at risk. Best measure we can come is looking at our total revenues, what makes up Medicaid, self-pay, and charity, and we'll provide those that numbers to you. And then from a financial standpoint, almost every financial measure is based on prior year or budget. Just trying to give you some insight into where we're at on a regular basis. So this was a starting point of a dashboard. We would appreciate your input with that. We're trying to make sure from an oversight standpoint that you have the information. This is what we thought was most important. Things can change on this in the matter of a certain month, but we would appreciate your input. Neely, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so very much, Tom. As I said, I'm so grateful that we have the hospital systems in place right now, and that's allowing us to take care of the patients in the community. And once again, Tom, and to Jason Smith and the whole team, thank you. In this process, hopefully you've had a chance to see all the big areas from our teaching mission to our research mission to athletics to our healthcare. And I want to just call out a few others because this is the whole support system that allows us to do what we do. I want to thank Michael Wade Smith, my chief of staff, and the group that reports to him, because it's Shannon in government relations, John Rees and the OCM team, IT, we're always thankful for. And I want to also thank Tom Hoy and the GC's office, because as we are trying to navigate through this, there are so many unknowns, and we've had to figure out how we navigate these uncharted waters. So with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my report. It's hard to believe it's not yet fully 2 years since I've been president at UofL. These have been momentous times for sure. And I hope that you all as a board feel reassured that we're in a better position now financially and as a team coming together. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, my comments will be brief. Thank you, Neely, and thank you for everybody for these enlightening presentations. I don't have many additional comments, except I really do. This is a time to be grateful. And I really want to thank the entire team for the incredible leadership, commitment, the tenacity this team has shown through these extraordinary circumstances. It really speaks to the culture of the university and UofL Health. I particularly want to give a shout out to Dr. Michael Martis and his team. They did a Zoom update earlier today on how his team and the Student Emergency Fund, faculty and staff are all pulling together to put our students first and foremost in everything they do. And it really shows. When I look around this virtual room, particularly at the people who joined this team in the last couple of years, knowing they were stepping into positions with big challenges, but having no way of anticipating as significant of what we're facing now, both with the acquisition of the Kentucky One assets, and certainly nobody anticipated a global pandemic. So Kevin, Vince, Dan, Brad, Tom Hoy, Tom Miller, Michael Wade, and certainly our fearless leader, Neely. Just my thanks on behalf of all the board to you all. I've seen a team that digs in, faces adversity, and meets the challenges, and always with our cardinal principles guiding them. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to thank the rest of the Board of Trustees for their contributions through this. And I really want to thank John, Scott, and Randy, our newest trustees, for stepping into this, getting up to speed quickly, and already making significant contributions to this team. It occurred to me when Jasper was on earlier that this may be his last full board meeting, as he is graduating this spring. I think he may be at our June committee meetings, but just in case, I want to recognize him now. I'm sure you will all agree he's been an invaluable member of this team. He has demonstrated his intellect, his capacity, his extraordinary leadership, and I know that he will continue to make the university proud. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jasper, for your loyal and impactful service. And we look forward to following you in your next adventure. And so that concludes my grateful comments, and we now need to move into executive session. May I have a motion?
Mary, this is John. Could I have just a second before we go in executive session?
Yes, sir.
Just to say thank you to the board and Randy for your initial gift, and what Vince referenced earlier with our staff emergency fund and the student emergency fund. The contributions are going to help us stand in the gap for people, even though the administration has been very diligent in trying to make sure people are impacted in the least possible manner. There's still going to be people hurt. We know that, and these contributions are going to allow us to stand in the gap for people that may have issues with unemployment benefits or something like that. They are deeply, deeply appreciated, and we're very grateful.
Thank you, John. Anybody else have any comments before we move into executive session?
Yeah, Mary, if I can just say a huge thank you for your kind words and everything that this board has done for the university. Personally, this has been one of the best experiences of my life. And as I leave and as a new SGA president transitions in, I feel fully confident telling them that they are coming to work with people and for an institution that every single time they show up, care as much as they can and do the very best and the most right thing they can do. So this has been one of the best experiences I've ever had, and I'm grateful for it every day, and I'll carry it with me for the rest of my life. So thank you all very much.
Okay, you're making me tear up. So we'll just take a couple more minutes and tell us what you're going to do next.
The plan right now is to defer for a year, and then in August of 2021, I'll be attending Georgetown Law School in DC. So fingers crossed, everything goes according to plan, and I'll have a job, and law school will be there when I'm ready to go, and everything will work out.
Great. Well, congratulations. We look forward to keeping in touch with you. And I hope we see you at the committee meetings in June. We'll have another chance to wish you well.
Yes, I will definitely be there.
Okay. May I have a motion to recess to executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS?
So moved. Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor signify aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstention. Motion carries. We are now in executive session. Jake.
20 seconds. We'll then invite folks to come back in if they need to. So another minute or so, and then we'll conclude with the roll call vote on the matter. Ryan, if you would let us know when the live stream is back on, we'll proceed. All right, it appears the live stream is back, so you may proceed, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're back in open meeting. In executive session, the board discussed personnel matters. We will now take the following action. May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to revoke the tenure of Dr. Henry J. Kaplan?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We will now take a roll call vote. I'll call your name one at a time. Benita Black.
Aye.
Scott Brinkman.
Aye.
Randy Bufford.
Aye.
Raymond Burse.
Aye.
John Chilton.
Yes.
Sandra Frazier.
Aye.
Diane Medley.
Aye.
Mary Nixon. Aye. Jasper Noble.
Aye.
Jim Rogers.
Aye.
Aye.
John Smith.
Aye.
Krista Wallace Boaz.
Aye.
Ron Wright.
Aye.
The ayes have it and the motion is passed. I want to thank you everybody for your patience today. This was a relatively long virtual meeting, but Neely and I are committed to not only using these meetings to accomplish our governance responsibilities, but under the premise, the more you know, the more you care, to include opportunities to introduce you to some of our extraordinary talent and to inform you of important topics and issues. I know we also got a lot of material to you at the 11th hour due to all the challenges of trying to get it all completed remotely, and we will try to get it to you further in advance in the future. So my apologies for that and my appreciation for your patience. Having no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify aye.
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 The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you.
you.